So with this, friend, let's get started on our discussion on GST. Friends, one of the most important provision under the GST law is with respect to reverse charge mechanism. As all of you are aware, typically reverse charge mechanism is a mechanism wherein instead of the tax being paid by the supplier, the recipient of the service, the recipient of the goods is made liable to make payment of GST. Now, this provision is not something unique provision to the GST law. Even across the world, similar provisions exist. And you will be able to recall that even under the Indian service tax regime, this provision was existing, wherein there were numerous services which were covered under the ambit of reverse charge. And you can even see, if you go through the list of reverse charge which is there under the GST regime, you'll be able to understand that almost all the services which were under the ambit of reverse charge under the service tax regime, they have been carried forward in the GST regime as well. So what we are going to do, we will be just briefly taking you to these services. In case there are any specific question, we can take up those questions. If not, then we'll be focusing on certain key important aspect of reverse charge mechanism, and then we will take the discussion forward. So friends, as we discussed that there are many services on which reverse charge is applicable. The most famous, I think all of you know, the GTS services, that is Goods Transport Agency services. Further, in case you are availing any services from the advocates, you are liable to pay GST and reverse charge mechanism. Similarly, in case you are taking any sponsorship services, you are liable to make GST and reverse charge mechanism. Similarly, if you are availing any services from the government, even in such cases, you will be required to pay GST and reverse charge mechanism. Additionally, there are few specific categories of reverse charge mechanism which are only applicable with respect to certain specific taxpayers. For example, with respect to a bank or NBFC, because they typically take the help of a recovery agent. The government has said in case of recovery agent, it is not the recovery agent who should make payment of GST, but rather it should be bank. Now you will say why? The basic question, the basic scenario, all of you are aware that recovery agents are people who one can say are dabang, or who are typically will ensure that the tax, the amount is being recovered from a particular person. Now, if they don't, these recovery agents, if they don't make payment of GST, then how the GST authorities can recover the taxes from them, correct? Should they appoint some other dabangs? That was the question. That's why they said that instead of recovery agent, it is much better that the bank or NBFC should make payment of GST. Friends, then there are few other important reverse charge also, and one of the most important and controversial reverse charge in the recent days has been the reverse charge applicable with respect to the director services. As all of you are aware that services supplied by the director of a company to the company are services wherein reverse charge is applicable. Now in this regard, all of you are also aware at the same time that there is a particular schedule called as Schedule 3, and we had a discussion on Schedule 3 when we discussed Section 7. As all of you are aware that when we look at Schedule 3, it specifically says that the activities which are specified in Schedule 3, they will not be considered as supply of goods or supply of services. Now, when you read that particular schedule, you'll be able to understand that the serial number 1 in that schedule talks about the fact that when a services are provided by an employee to the employer, then those services are practically outside the ambit of GST because they are covered under Schedule 3. Now, what happens that when there is a director in your company, typically we'll have to first understand whether the director services would get covered under reverse charge mechanism or not, or should it get excluded because of this Schedule 3. So in this regard, in the last couple of months, there have been numerous advance rulings which have been pronounced. In certain advance ruling, it was said that irrespective of the nature of the directorship, that is, whether the director is executive director or whether the director is a non-executive director. So irrespective of that, typically whenever there is a payment, by the company to the director, in such cases it was said that GST was required to be paid under reverse charge mechanism basis. These are the advance ruling, that is Alcon and Claycraft, and similarly few others as well. But at the same time, there was another advance ruling in the name of Anil Kumar Agrawal, wherein it was said that in cases where the director is actually employee of the company, in such cases, reverse charge mechanism will not trigger because of Schedule 3. So because of this controversial as well as contrary advance ruling, the issue was being debated in the public domain a lot. And that's where the departmental authorities also thought that it is much better for them to clarify this issue by way of a circular. And that's where you can find that even during the lockdown period, when typically the authorities are not working, or almost the taxpayers are also not working, and neither the consultant, even in that particular time period, they thought that it is much better to provide a clarification, and that's why on 10th of June 2020, they issued circular number 140, wherein the theme or the basic premise of the circular is that in case your director who is working in the company, in case he is an employee director, now typically who is employee director? A whole-time director, a executive director, they are considered to be employee directors. So in case the person who is working in your company as director, in case he is considered to be a whole-time or employee director, in such cases it has been clarified, it has been specified that GST will not, the GST liability under reverse charge mechanism will not trigger. So it's an extremely welcome clarification. But please note, the clarification also specifies that typically in case of employee director, the tax which will be deducted by the company would be deducted under the income tax law. It would be deducted under section 192, that is the under the head of salary. So please note that whenever you are taking as a company as a position that you are not going to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism, then please ensure that one, there is a TDS which is being deducted if it is applicable under section 192 of Income Tax Act, correct? So that it will substantiate the position that the director who is working in your company is actually an employee director, correct? And in such cases, reverse charge mechanism will not trigger. But at the same time, please note that there are few other directors also. For example, there can be a person who is working in your company as an independent director. And in such cases, that person might be getting some fees or he might be getting some sitting charges. In such cases, please note, reverse charge mechanism will trigger and GST will be required to be paid under reverse charge mechanism by your company. Now, friend, there is a third scenario also. So which two scenarios we have seen? One, a scenario wherein the director is exclusively working as an employee of the company and all the payment which he is receiving is in the nature of employment, correct? Wherein you are deducting TDS under 192. That is a pure director. That is a pure employee director. Then second scenario which we discussed was an independent director who is working in your company not as an employee but as a rather professional, wherein reverse charge mechanism is applicable. Now let us understand that there can be a third scenario also. In certain cases, it has been observed that certain directors who are actually working as an employee of the company, and they receive also salary and TDS is also deducted under section 192. But at the same time, few other payments are made to them. For example, maybe commission or other payment, wherein various companies have taken a position that additional payment which is going or being paid to that particular person, whatever it could be, maybe say additional fees in the nature of fees, then it has been said that the additional fees would attract TDS not under section 192 but under section 194J. And as all of you are aware, section 194J is for TDS on professionals. So in such cases, the GST authorities have clarified that as far as the payment on which you are deducting TDS under 192 is concerned, reverse charge liability will not trigger. But the amount wherein you are deducting TDS, the amount which you are paying to the director, wherein you are deducting TDS under section 194J, in such cases you will be required to make payment of GST under reverse charge mechanism. So it's an extremely important clarification. So please keep a note of the same. We have also tabulated this clarification for you and tried to simplify it as much as possible for the benefit of all of you. So to summarize, a director can be an employee director, he can be a other than employee director. In case he is other than employee director, reverse charge mechanism liability will trigger. In case he is the employee director, whatever payment you are making to him as salary, deducting TDS under 192, no reverse charge mechanism will be applicable and you will not be required to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism. But in case you are making payment to him for some other fees and you are deducting TDS under section 194J, then in such cases reverse charge liability will trigger. So just try to see that whatever position you are going to take under GST law, it should be married or it should be matched with this table particularly, so that your understanding and the CBIC understanding matches and you will not be facing any litigation in days to come. So with this, friend, we have discussed the most important recent clarification with respect to director services. Now let us move further. Friends, as all of you are aware that reverse charge mechanism liability not only triggers when you are domestically procuring certain services, but it also triggers when you are importing certain services. Service tax was also liable to be paid when you are importing services from a non-resident. Similarly, under GST law also, if you are importing certain services, you are liable to make payment of GST under reverse charge. Prominently, there are two reverse charges which are specifically mentioned under the IGST law. And these reverse charges are: one, when you are importing certain services from a non-resident, correct, who is located in non-taxable territory, that is outside India. Second important reverse charge which is there under the IGST law is with respect to the services of vessel transportation. That is, you are transporting certain goods by a vessel, correct, and the goods are moving from outside India to India. In such cases, it was said that typically the importer of service, that is the person who is paying the freight, he should be made liable to payment of GST, and under reverse charge mechanism, he should make payment of GST as import of, under the category import of services. Now, this particular entry was heavily debated in the last couple of years. Last, rather, I would say for 3 years, this entry was getting repeatedly debated, because the taxpayers were saying, when I am importing goods, let us say we are importing goods from Japan. Now, when I am importing goods from Japan and when I am unloading the goods, what I am doing, I am importing, say, goods worth 1 lakh rupee, that is laptop. When I am importing the laptop, on those goods which I have unloaded, that is goods of 1 lakh rupees worth laptop, on that typically I am liable to pay a basic custom duty. Additionally, as a part of the custom duty, I am also liable to make payment of IGST. So I am already making payment of GST under reverse charge mechanism, and I am considering what I am importing as goods, correct? Even for the purpose of Customs Act, to the government of India, I am declaring that I have imported goods. Now, when on those imported goods, basic custom duty is paid, IGST is also paid as part of the base custom duties. Then in such cases, the taxpayer said, why you are again making us liable for payment of GST on the ocean freight? Because the basic custom duty as well as IGST as part of the custom duty is paid on the total value, that is value of goods as well as the insurance amount as well as the freight amount, correct? Because you are liable to make payment of custom duty on CIF value, that is cost, insurance, freight. So the entire value actually suffers the basic custom duty as well as IGST. Then why there is a need for us to again say that the ocean freight is only again additionally a service, and on that again we should make payment of IGST? And this particular entry, that is the second entry which we are discussing, it was challenged in numerous courts of law. And this particular entry, when it was challenged in the Gujarat High Court, in the case of Mohit Mineral, the Gujarat High Court gave a very balanced view. It went through all the arguments which were taken by the appellant, that is Mohit Mineral and all other parties. And in this writ petition, the High Court said that the reverse charge mechanism entry, which is introduced under the GST law on ocean freight, it will not sustain. That is notification number 8/2017, wherein the reverse charge mechanism is said to be applicable on ocean freight amount, was said as lacking a legislative competency. That is, it was said as ultra vires the act, and that's where it was said that no reverse charge liability would be required to be paid on the ocean freight which you are paying under the head of services, correct, under reverse charge mechanism. So it's an extremely welcome judgment. It's an extremely beneficial judgment as far as the taxpayers are concerned. Now, friends, please note that because of this particular judgment, obviously there has been a detailed debate in the public domain, because people have now their own sorts of or sets of questions. Because there are many taxpayers who are paying or who were paying GST under reverse charge mechanism on ocean freight. So they would like to know now, what should they do? Should they now stop making payment of GST under reverse charge mechanism on the ocean freight, or should they continue? Correct? What if they would have paid already and claim credit? What should they do? And another important question which people are having is, what if this question is challenged in the apex court? Because this is a high court judgment, correct? This is not a Supreme Court judgment. What if the judgment is challenged in the apex court, that is Supreme Court, and subsequently Supreme Court says no, reverse charge liability is applicable? Then in such cases, what the taxpayer should do? Correct? Friends, in such cases, what we would like to advise you is, one, if you are making payment of GST under reverse charge mechanism on ocean freight, and as a company you are able to claim that credit and you are able to utilize that credit also for your output liability, then it is much better for you to continue to pay the liability and make payment of the same, and then claim the credit and utilize the same for your output liability, correct? In cases where you are making payment of GST under a reverse charge mechanism on ocean freight amount, but you are unable to claim the credit, maybe your product is exempted, correct? In such cases, you can certainly explore the possibility of taking benefit of this judgment and stopping payment of IGST under reverse charge mechanism. Additionally, in cases where you are not claim credit of the IGST which is paid by you under reverse charge mechanism, in such cases you can also explore the possibility of claiming refund of IGST paid by you. Because recently, after the judgment of Mohit Mineral, this issue was again put before the Gujarat High Court, wherein it was said that there are few taxpayers in Gujarat who have paid IGST on the ocean freight. What they should do, correct? Should they go and claim refund because the notification has been struck as ultra virus? So this matter, when it went before the High Court specifically mentioned that let the people who would like to claim refund, let them file the refund before the jurisdictional authorities. And the High Court also made a specific mention of the fact that the competent authorities should not raise any technical issue with respect to the claim of refund. So because all of you know that whenever such kind of favorable judgments are delivered, the tax authorities typically try to again deny the credit or deny the refund based on some technical or procedural grounds. And that's where the Gujarat High Court has again come back specifically on that the taxpayer should not be denied refund, because the High Court has already specifically held the entry of reverse charge as an ultra virus as far as the entry of ocean freight or GST on ocean freight is concerned. So this is an extremely important judgment, friend. In case any one of you is paying GST under reverse charge mechanism, this judgment could be of great help. So now, friend, let us move ahead. We have till now we talked about reverse charge mechanism. Now let us take or discuss some other important judgment which have been pronounced in the last couple of months. Friends, there are few questions which are being raised right now, such as by example, Mr. Keur would like to ask some question. So Mr. Keur, what we will do, we'll take up your question maybe after few more minutes, correct? Let us first discuss few of the slides. So friends, as we were discussing that there are few important judgments which have been pronounced in the last couple of months. So let's understand which are those judgments. The one important judgment or multiple judgments are there which are pronounced in the GST law in the last couple of months have to do with Tran 1 credit. As all of you are aware that before GST was introduced, obviously many of you, because all of you belong to the taxpayer category who is having more than 5 crore rupees turnover, all of you are almost registered with the excise authorities and service tax authority as well as VAT authorities. Now what has happened that many of you were having substantial input tax credit. Even if we take our own client cases, we will be surprised to know that in certain cases, some of the taxpayer or our clients were having input tax credit more than few hundreds of crore rupees. Now such input tax credit which was there with the taxpayer, this credit was belonging to the Senvad credit era, it was belonging to the service tax era, it was belonging to the VAT era. Now the taxpayer were allowed to transit or allowed to do transition of this credit to the GST era. Now what happened that when this transition was taking place in the initial GST time period, that is in the first couple of 6 months, what happened that many of the taxpayers were not very much clear about the provision of transition. At the same time, there was a paucity of time because the forms were not working, the website was not working, the GSTN portal was down. And not only that time, right now also it is down, that is separate part. But because of that, there were substantial technical glitches which were arising. And that's where many of the taxpayers were unable to do transition of that Senvad credit or some other credit to the GST regime. Though the GST law specifically allowed or permitted them to do the transition. And that's where all these taxpayers who were unable to do the transition of their credit, they started approaching high courts. And because of that, if you look at the last couple of months or year, you'll be able to realize that there are numerous judgments which have been pronounced on this particular topic. And even there are numerous other judgments which are yet to be pronounced, correct? So the fundamental issue remains that in cases where a person was unable to find Tran 1 return, correct? Will he be allowed to claim the credit which he has missed to claim by filing Tran 1? So in this regard, I think all of you would be aware that the most important judgments was one of the judgment of the Bombay High Court, wherein in the case of Nelco, it was said that Rule 117, because there are two important provisions under the GST law based on which you are allowed to do transfer of credit. One, Section 140, which was covered under the Act, that is GST Act, and second was rule, that is Rule 117. Now, please note that as far as the act was concerned, in the act it was mentioned that a taxpayer can do transition of credit and the rules will prescribe the manner of transition of credit, correct? As far as time limit was concerned, section 140 was specifically silent on time limit. There was no mention of any time limit whatsoever in the section 140 about transition credit. Now, this particular matter then went to the High Court, and one of the argument which was taken by the taxpayer was that Act is silent on the time limit, but Rule 117 is prescribing time. Now, when Act is not prescribing time, can rules prescribe time? And can rules say that if you don't file the return by this particular date, you will not be entitled to claim the credit? Now, in this particular judgment, unfortunately, the Bombay High Court said that yes, the rules can prescribe the time limit, and Rule 117 cannot be said as ultra vires the Act, even though it is prescribing the time limit. Now, although the Bombay High Court has said or decided the decision went against the taxpayer, in spite of that, in other high courts, correct, such as in the case of Adfert Technology, the matter in this matter particularly, the High Court has said that the taxpayer can continue to claim they would be entitled to claim the credit, although they have not filed Tran 1. So this particular judgment was in favor of the taxpayer. Then recently, the Delhi High Court delivered again important judgment on Tran 1. And in this judgment, they very vocally, very specifically mentioned that the taxpayer, even though he has not filed Tran 1, he would be in a position to claim the credit. And this was one of the most important judgment on Tran 1 saga. If you look at the judgment, there are numerous important observations which the High Court has made. One of the prominent observation is that the credit which is there, that is the SENVAD credit or service tax credit, whatever it is, the earlier era credit, it is as good as a vested right. It is acquired and vested right of the taxpayer. So the procedural law cannot take away the substantive right practically. And that was one of the most important observation. You can also understand, friends, whenever there is a vested right, whenever one can say that I have some vested right, I have some acquired right, then please note, as far as Article 300A of Constitution India is concerned, as far as this Article 300A is concerned, this property cannot be taken away except by authority of law. So that's where, if you have any credit which was there under the SENVAD credit rule, the Delhi High Court said you have a vested right, correct, and it cannot be taken away. Second important point which the Delhi High Court mentioned was that the Tran 1 due dates are not sacrosanct. Why they are not sacrosanct? Because the government itself, they have extended this due date multiple times, correct, because of some technical glitches and all. And that's where it was said that the due date of filing of Tran was not sacrosanct. Additionally, it was mentioned that as far as Rule 117 was concerned, it was said that Rule 117 is only procedural in nature and it is not a substantive provision. Then it was also said that the time limit for claiming of credit would be considered as 3 years, because the Limitation Act specifies that whenever you identify a mistake, within 3 years you can do a correction. And because of this, they said, in case any taxpayer has not filed Tran 1, in such cases, the taxpayer can file the Tran 1 up to 30th June 2020. Up to 30th June 2020. And they'll be allowed to claim input tax credit. Now, this was extremely important observation of the High Court. And please note, in case any one of you have not filed Tran 1 and because of that a substantial amount of credit you are unable to claim, then based on this judgment you can explore should you claim the input tax credit. And please note, the Delhi High Court also made a specific observation that the GST authorities should open the portal and should accept, otherwise if they are unable to open the portal for filing of Tran 1, otherwise they should allow the taxpayer to file the Tran 1 manually. So this was the important observations of the Delhi High Court. Now what happened? After the Delhi High Court judgment was delivered, the GST authorities immediately amended Section 140. Now, as we were discussing, that Section 140 only talked about prescribed manner, but Section 140 did not specify about the time limit. So it was said that Section 140 did not have enabling power to specify time limit. And that's where, to provide for specifically enabling power, section 140 was amended, and you can understand from this language which is there under the section 140. Before it was amended, it was said that the section 140 mentioned about such manner as may be prescribed, correct? Now section 140 has been amended to say within such time and in such manner as may be prescribed. So the government has specifically amended to add the word within such time now. So they are saying now that 140 has specific word, that is within such time, and because of that it cannot be said that the rules are ultra vires the act, because the act is also now having a time limit or power to provide for time limit. Now friends, after this act provision got amended, after this particular provision got amended on 18th of May 2020, please note, again after 18th of May 2020, during lockdown, again this matter went to the High Court, in the Delhi High Court, in the case of SKH entity, in SKH company, and then this judgment was pronounced in the case of SKH Metal, SKH 3 Metal, and it was said that in spite of the fact that section 140 is now amended and it provides for time limit, in spite of that, because the Delhi High Court judgment in the case of brand equity is on various other points, it is not only limiting itself, or that brand equity judgment, it is not only on a limited point of time limit being provided or not provided, it is on many other aspects. That's why in the case of SKH Sheet Metal, the Delhi High Court said that even in spite of the amendment, in spite of the amendment being retrospective in nature, even in spite of that, the judgment of brand equity will continue to hold good, it will continue to apply. And that's where SKH Sheet Metal case also, the Delhi High Court said that because of various other grounds being there, the taxpayer would be in a position to claim credit up to 30th of June 2020. Now what happened? Because of this series of judgment which were being given by the High Court and they were against the GST authorities, the GST authorities immediately approached the Supreme Court, because in their view the taxpayer cannot now claim the credit. And right now, when the GST authorities approached the Supreme Court, the matter has been, right now the brand equity judgment has been stayed by the Supreme Court, and right now one can say that we will have to now wait and watch what the Supreme Court says, because the Delhi High Court judgments are in favor of the taxpayer, but at the same time, as we discussed, the NELCO judgment was against the taxpayer, and because of this we will have to now wait and watch what finally will emerge, correct? So you can understand the simple Tran-1 credit, it has gone through a stages of litigation, correct? So there one can say it is like a cat and mouse chase, correct? Like a Tom and Jerry chase, wherein there are few judgments which are in favor of the taxpayer, then there are judgments which are delivered against the taxpayer, then the government retrospectively amends the law. After the law is amended, the High Court again says that irrespective of the amendment, still the taxpayer can claim the credit. And that's where the departmental authority then approached the Apex Court. And right now one can say that the matter is pending before the Apex Court, so we'll have to wait and watch on this particular matter. So friends, what we will recommend to all of you, in cases where you are having certain credit which you are unable to do a transition, try to understand what is the quantum. In case the quantum is substantially high, for example, in one of our client case, the quantum was more than 3 crore rupees. In such cases, the taxpayers are trying to claim the credit based on the brand equity judgment, because it appears to be a very reasoned judgment and very well drafted judgment. So based on that, people are exploring the option of claiming the credit, correct? They are trying to connect with the departmental authorities and they are saying, kindly open the portal for us because we would like to claim the credit. But in cases where the credit which was missed by you is only up by few lakh, like say 1 or 2 or 3 lakh, then it is much better for you to forget that credit, because otherwise what will happen, in case the matter is decided against you, or in case the matter is pending for a few more years, if the GST authorities come for audit or review, typically they will try to deny the credit, and then the cost of litigation for you would be much more than the amount of credit. So that is the way forward you can take from this entire saga, that is the Tran-1 saga. Friends, let us now move ahead with few other important judgments. And one of the other important judgment which we wanted to share with you was with respect to composite supply. The other day we had a detailed discussion on composite supply. As all of you are aware, the concept of composite supply says that if you are bundling, or if you are providing 2 or more supplies together, then you need to identify what is the principal supply. and based on the principal supply, you are required to pay GST at the rate which is applicable to the principal supply. So what had happened in case of Abbott Healthcare, the taxpayer, that is the taxpayer, was actually supplying equipment and his distributors were supplying reagents. So what used to happen, Abbott Healthcare was supplying the machinery or equipment in the hospitals, and these machineries can be worked or they can be used only when there is a certain chemical or reagent, and this reagent was supplied by the distributors of Abbott Healthcare Limited. So please note that when these machineries were supplied by this company Abbott, they were not charging any rent whatsoever to the hospitals. And please note, if any rent was being charged, then GST rate which would have been applicable was 18%. Whereas when the distributors were supplying the reagent, the rate of GST which was being charged was only 5%. And that's where Abbott Healthcare Limited had their own doubts. Should we pay GST at the rate of 5% or should we pay GST at the rate of 18%? Because we are supplying the equipment to the hospital and we are not charging GST. But at the same time, we are supplying reagents through our distributors, and the distributors are charging 5% GST because they are only supplying the equipment, only supplying the reagent or chemicals on which, as per GST law, 5% GST is applicable. So this particular matter went to the Advanced Ruling Authority. They applied for Advanced Ruling Authority. Typically, I think all of you are aware that whenever these kind of critical or key issues are there, many of the taxpayers do not right now prefer approaching Advanced Ruling Authority. But it was surprising that on this kind of a tricky issue, the Abbott Healthcare entity or their consultant or maybe the team, they decided to approach Advanced Ruling Authority. Now, as you are aware that whenever we ask Advanced Ruling Authority, what is the rate of tax applicable? Will it apply, the 5% rate will apply or 18%? The typical answer would be whichever is higher, correct? And that's what in the case of Abbott Healthcare happened. The rate of tax, they said, would be the higher rate of tax, that is 18%. And that's where Abbott Healthcare again went to the appellate Advanced Ruling Authority. There again, they were unable to get the right ruling, and that's where then they approached the High Court. The High Court then went into the detailed facts, and then the High Court said that to apply the concept of composite supply, the supply should actually happen from one person only. In the instant case, as we are discussing, there was a supply of medical equipment, but that supply was taking place from Abbott Healthcare, correct? That is, equipment were being supplied by Abbott Healthcare, but at the same time, the reagent or the chemical, they were being supplied by their distributor. That is, there are two persons who are supplying this. One is supplying chemicals or reagent, and one person is supplying the equipment. They said that in such cases, typically you cannot apply the concept of composite supply, and that's where the composite supply principles will not get attracted. And ideally, the rate applicable, one can say inference, one can take an inference that ideally in such cases, the rate applicable to respective product would be applicable, correct? And that's where the High Court remanded the matter back to the Advanced Ruling Authority and requested them to pass fresh orders. So that was the judgment of composite supply, friends, for you, which we wanted to share with you. So friends, with this, we are almost through with our detailed discussion on various key aspects of GST Act. We had around, I think, around 3.5 days time to cover the critical or key aspect. And we tried our level best to share with you all the key amendments, including the key provisions, the most important judgments, which could be of relevance to you on a day-to-day basis. Now, what we are going to discuss after this discussion is basically how, as a indirect tax team, because almost many of you belong to the indirect tax team, how, as a team member of indirect tax team, what are the steps you should take? What should you do to ensure that you can leverage on GST? And what is meant by leveraging on GST? Basically, almost all of us always believe that GST is a compliance law, correct? And that's where we always say that we have to comply with the law. And many of time we are unable to take the good things from the GST law for the benefit of the company. And that's where we thought, why not to share, why not to see GST from a different perspective? Can we leverage on GST? Can we say that you can take some benefits also out of GST? And what could be those benefits? So friend, now we are going to discuss about these are the 4 to 5 important areas from wherein you can actually get benefit from GST law itself for your organization. The first important point is, and we are going to discuss all these points in much more detail. The first important point, which is typically related or applicable to exporters. So if you are exporter of goods or if you are exporter of services, or in case your product is covered under the category of inverted duty structure. So in such cases, as all of you are aware, that you are entitled to claim refund. So what could be the steps which can be taken by such people, correct? So this is a specific provision. This is a specific bit which would be applicable particularly for exporter and other entities such as inverted duty structure entity. The second point onwards, these points are practically applicable for all the taxpayers. So whether you are exporter or not, even in spite of that, this point number, serial number 2 to 5 would be applicable, correct? What are these points? One, now we should try to collaborate with the taxpayer, that is our customer, as much as possible. The third important point, we need to interact with our distributor. That point, I think many of you yesterday also you sent us few queries which were dealing with dealers or distributors. So this particular point could be of relevance to all of you. We are going to discuss that. Then the next important point, we had a discussion on this, that we need to focus on our vendor. And finally, what are the important steps we can take based on which one can say that we can be a step ahead of GST law. Because friends, practically, if you would like to be successful in GST regime, the only way you can be successful in GST regime as an organization is being a step ahead in the GST law, because you need to foresee what is coming and then you will have to take appropriate steps. So we'll also discuss what are the good steps which all of you can take as an organization. So let's get started on the thought process as to how all of us can actually leverage on GST. The first important point, as we discussed, is with respect to typically exporters. Now friends, as all of you are aware, that exporters are entitled to claim refund of GST which is paid by them on their purchase or procurement. At the same time, in cases where if you are exporting certain goods, you can pay GST on those export of goods also, and you can claim refund of the GST which is paid by you, correct? That is typically called as rebate mechanism. Now what we have observed in the last couple of months, there are many taxpayers who typically are exporter of goods or exporter of services. However, they do not file the refund claim within the prescribed time. So what they do, that because the GST law provides for 2-year time limit, they typically wait for the last quarter of 2 years. That is, if you are having 24 months, so typically the refund claims are filed in the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, or even in certain cases 24th month, correct? So typically most of the taxpayer wait for the last date and then only they claim the refund. So what we will recommend, friends, rather than for waiting for 2 years, it is much better that all of you can apply for refund at the earliest. You'll be surprised to know one of our client has actually claimed refund up to the month of January 2020. So his only refund claims are pending for last 3 to 4 months, and in those months practical there has not been substantial refunds because there is not substantial export. So there are many good taxpayers, there are many good prominent I would say from taxpayers who are claiming refund at the earliest rather than waiting for the last moment. So this one important thing you should keep in mind, that you should apply for refund at the earliest. Don't wait for the last moment. Second important thing is that please note that right now the GST authorities are also processing the refund at extremely fast speed. We can share with you that just 2 to 3 weeks back, we applied for refund in one particular case on Monday, and by next Monday, the client's refund was got processed. So it's extremely, I would say, one of the most important thing which is happening in the GST regime, that the tax authorities are processing refund at an extremely fast pace. Because please note that while all of us are working from home, the GST authorities, including some of the commissioner, they are working from their offices and they are trying to resolve as many queries or as many issues for the taxpayer as possible. And that's where, in case you are exporter of goods or services, try to apply for refund at the earliest, because the refunds are getting processed at an extremely fast speed, and that could be of benefit to you. And because of this, in case you receive some refund in the current turbulent time, I think even your senior management would be extremely happy, because they will say that in this turbulent time, when our customers are not paying, including our foreign customers, when they are not paying, practically these kind of refunds could be of great help, because this would provide a big cash inflow to the organization. So try to apply for refund at the earliest. That's the big takeaway. Now, yesterday and day before, when we were discussing with few of the participants, what we have realized that in certain cases, while the taxpayers have applied for refund, but at the same time, the refund is pending for last couple of months, or in cases even for a year or more than a year, because of some technical glitch. Now, what we can do with respect to such technical glitch, let's understand. When we talk about the technical glitches, you'll have to understand that technical glitch would be of various type. You will have to understand what is the reason for your refund being stuck. In certain cases, what is happening that because of how you file a refund claim, typically you will export the goods or services, correct? So if you are exporting goods, you are filing shipping bill, correct, and you are declaring certain details to the IceGate portal. And after that, you are filing GSTR1. Subsequently, you are filing GSTR3B. Correct. Now, what is happening when you are filing your shipping bill, when you are filing your GSTR1, and then you are filing your GSTR3B? Sometimes the data which you are punching in these three different documents, that is shipping bill, GSTR1, and 3B, sometimes some of the taxpayer are making some error in those particular documents, and that's where the data is not matching. As far as one of the observation of the departmental authorities concerned, in one of the circular they mention that only 32% of the data is matching. That means around 70% of the data is not matching, and that's where be extremely careful, friends, when you are filing your shipping bill, your GSTR1 and your GSTR3B. Try to ensure that the invoice number which you are mentioning, it should be consistent. Don't make any error whatsoever. Additional important thing is, whenever you are paying GST, correct, whenever you are paying GST, please pay it under the GSTR3B under appropriate column. Some of the people have paid GST, but they have declared it as a domestic supply, and that's where when the refunds, the system is trying to match the detail, they are unable to get the refund. So friends, in such cases, the refund is unlikely to get processed, and how you'll have to resolve it? You'll have to approach the GST authorities. You'll have to write to respect to jurisdictional commissioners. You'll have to write to GSTN and try to request them to resolve your issue. How you should approach them? By way of email right now. Obviously, although in certain cases, even the GST authorities are working right now, you can even go and meet them in person also, but obviously by taking appointment. And second important thing is, whenever you are writing emails to the jurisdictional authority, try to ensure that you are appropriately briefly sharing the email with the GST authorities, and second, you are attaching appropriate screenshot, because then only the GST authorities would be in a position to help you out. We can share with you, friends, in our own client, in certain cases, we were able to get these issues resolved in just matter of couple of months when the issues were stuck at the GST portal and the refunds were not getting processed. So you will have to follow up with the authorities, but the likeliness of your refund getting processed after the follow up is much higher. At the end, I can share with you one important aspect, that whenever you want to get a refund, you need to have a PPF account. And what is a PPF account? P stands for patience, another P stands for persistence, and the last F stands for follow. That means you need to have patience, you need to be persistent with the effort, and finally you need to follow up with the authorities. So if you have PPF account, you will get your refunds. Second, there are in certain cases what is happening, that the data is appropriately filed by the taxpayer. Correct, he has filed everything appropriately. However, in spite of that, the details are not getting populated at the IceGate portal of the custom. And in such cases, practically you will have to continuously write email to the jurisdictional authorities, custom authorities, and then you will have to get a resolution from them. That's the only solution. Otherwise, it's not going to get resolved. In certain cases, the refund file, which is typically with the jurisdictional authorities, it has been observed that the refund gets allotted to other person than the jurisdictional authorities, and that's where again the refunds do not get processed. So in such cases, friends, you will have to again communicate with the jurisdictional authorities and the authorities to whom the file is wrongly allotted, and then they are expected to get it resolved. There is one particular circular also on this particular matter, wherein it has been said that within 3 to 5 days the reallotment can happen, although practically we have seen that around 1 or 2 weeks it takes, and the matters get reallocated to the right jurisdiction. Finally, friends, there are few taxpayers who have filed refund claim, and the refund claim amount was say 10 lakh rupees. However, when they were filing the refund claim, instead of typing 10 lakh, they have said that their refund claim is nil, and they have filed refund claim but as nil refund. So even though they were entitled to claim the refund, instead of putting the right amount, they filed it as a nil refund amount, and that's where the refund got stuck. In this regard, there is one particular circular, 110 number circular, wherein the GST authorities have clarified that in case you are not filed the refund claim for subsequent quarter, then you can resubmit this refund claim again, and you will be given or granted the refund. But in case you have filed the refund claim for subsequent matter, then there is no practically way or solution for you except the fact that you will have to follow up with the jurisdictional authorities and write email to GSTN. So friend, what are the key takeaway for all of you as far as refund is concerned? One, try to file refund at the earliest. Second, in case refunds are stuck, follow up with the authorities. The authorities are processing the refund at a very fast speed, very in a fast manner. You will be beneficial. You will get the benefit of the same. And third, in case the refunds are not getting processed, you can write email to jurisdictional authorities. You can write email to GSTN. At the same time, you can also try to raise your issue at the PG portal. That is the CPGram portal also it is called, correct? The PG portal, wherein the issue which is there, that is in case your refunds are not getting processed, the issue or grievance will directly be routed or directly be highlighted to the Prime Minister, correct? And then through Prime Minister office, the GST authorities will be informed to process the refund claim, correct? Obviously, they will go through the document. So you can even take help of the PG portal in case your refunds are pending, and try to see your whether your refunds would be processed through such methodology or not. So friends, with this we are through with our discussion on refunds. Now let us discuss what are the other important ways through which you can try to get benefit from GST. Friend, as all of us are currently going through the struggle of Corona crisis, not only we are going through the struggle of Corona crisis, but at the same time, even our customers are going through the challenge of Corona. And that's where it is now more than important for all of us that not only we should be compliant, but at the same time, we should try to file our GSTR1 also appropriately. Why? Because the time you file your GSTR1 appropriately, your buyer would be in a position to understand how much is the credit, and he'll be in a position to take the credit appropriately. While at this particular point of time, we are aware that buyers right now can claim credit irrespective of GSTR2A, because Rule 36(4) has been kept at abeyance. But in spite of that, we are still recommending to our client, and we are happy to share with you, almost all of our clients are right now filing their GSTR1 as well as GSTR3B. And even as a taxpayer, we will request all the participants that in case you are yet to file the return, that is GSTR1 and 3B, you should file it at the earliest. Additionally, friends, in cases where any one of you are having substantial input tax credit, in such cases, and if you are having access to your data, system data, in such cases, it is much better to continuously file the return on the due dates rather than getting the benefit of extended due dates. Why? Because one, you are already having substantial input tax credit. You don't have to pay any amount through cash, or maybe even if the amount is to be paid in cash, the amount would be very minimal. So in such cases, it is much better for you to continuously file GSTR1 as well as 3B. And if you do that, practically it would be of great help to your customer, because they would be in a position to understand how much is the credit, and rather than doing the reconciliation in the month of September, they would be pleased to do the reconciliation right now only, because you are uploading the right details and it would be available to them through their GSTR2A. Another important point which is of benefit to all of you, friend, that in cases where your customers are not making payment to you, because this one particular point we have discussed with many of the participants as well as generally also with our client, that because of Corona crisis, many people are not getting payments within time. So what you can do, in cases where you are yet to receive consideration from your customer and the amount is pending for more than 150 or 60 days, then you can highlight this particular provision to your customer, saying that if the customer doesn't make payment to you within 180 days, then the customer will stand to lose input tax credit, correct? And he'll be also required to make payment of interest on that input tax credit. So it is in the benefit or interest of your customer to make payment within 180 days. So particularly in cases where your customers are yet to make payment to you and more than 140-50 days had lapsed, in such cases you can highlight this particular point and try to request to your customer to release your payments. This particular point, friend, that is, you need to now focus on your vendor. This point we have discussed yesterday only. That's where we will right now skip the point. Fourth important point is, friend, that you will have to interact with your vendors or with your dealers or distributors. And now why this point is important? Yesterday, we discussed the provision of valuation, wherein we talked about the fact that typically there are two types of discount. One is a discount which is given at the time of supply, and second is called as post-supply discount. As far as discount given at the time of supply are concerned, those discounts are typically allowed as a deduction. There is no issue on that. But as far as post supply discounts are concerned, there are certain conditions, correct? And as we discussed, there are 4 important conditions under section 15 subclause 3 subclause B, which you will have to fulfill before you can say that I can claim deduction of the post supply discount which I am giving to my dealer or distributor. And what are those 4 conditions which you have discussed, correct? One of the important condition is that the agreement, correct, the agreement should have happened or should take place at the time of supply or before the supply has actually effectuated by you. So because of this important condition, what is happening, the discount, if any, you are going to give in the name of Corona, that discount would be typically missing in the old agreement. And that's where the authorities are likely to question, can you claim the post supply discount which you are giving in the name of Corona, or a special discount which you are giving because of Corona crisis, can you claim that as a deduction along? That means, should you issue a credit note along with GST? Because in cases where you are issuing credit note without GST, that is typically referred as financial credit note, there is no issue. But in cases where you are issuing a credit note along with GST, there would be substantial number of questions which the authorities are going to question or ask you. So in such cases, what could be the solution? What can be the solution? We are going to share that with you. The solution can be, go through your agreement, understand whether you are talked about any special discount. In case you are not talked about any discount, then what you can do, one, try to create, or means legally, you can try to create a legally additional agreement, addendum to your agreement, and you can specifically mention that this addendum will be applicable or will be applicable from a date prior to the date of addendum, correct? So that means you are doing a retrospective, you are entering into a retrospective agreement, and then you can mention that because of Corona crisis, these additional discount would be given, and this would be the rate of discount. So based on this additional agreement, maybe you can try to see that are you fulfilling the condition under section 15(3)(b), and if yes, then you can claim it as a deduction. Please note that this kind of agreement or addendum may not be the agreement which or addendum which would be agreed by the authorities. They are likely to be litigated by the authorities, but still in our view, that these addendums would also suffice, because Corona crisis is a special crisis and nobody would ever have imagined about this kind of crisis. And that's where, even if your agreement is not having a mention about this Corona or special discount, that is fine, but try to add that by way of agreement, and then you can take the benefit of the post supply discount also. But friend, when you are going to give a post supply discount, please note, for the financial year 90-20, you have a time limit, outer time limit of issuing a credit note only up to the month of September 2020. After that, you would not be in a position to give a credit note. So in case you intend to give any credit note to your dealers or distributor, try to give them at the earliest, correct? Yes. So with this, friends, we are through with our dealer or distributor related point. Now let us move ahead. Now friends, as we have said that in cases where you need to be ahead of GST, one of the most important thing is you should always prioritize your compliances. Additionally, apart from that, you should also try to see that for the financial year 90-20, the time limit for you to claim any missing credit, in case you have missed an input tax credit, the outward time limit is again the month of September 2020 return. So in case you are yet to claim certain credit which is missed by you, for example, we'll give you some examples. For example, there could be cases where you have paid GST on air travel before Corona crisis, correct? Maybe your employee are traveling for official purpose, directors are traveling, but you are not claimed the credit. So try to identify all such credits, correct? There might be a scenario wherein the banks have debited certain amounts as bank charges to you, and you have not received the invoices. That's where you have not claimed the input tax credit. So you can make a list of all such credit and you can try to claim the credit. In one of our own client case, we can share with you, last month only they did this exercise along with us, and we were able to identify more than 7 to 8 lakh rupees worth credit for them. And that's where you can understand that this amount, it is substantial amount right now, because in Corona crisis, a rupee saved is as good as a rupee earned, correct? Because practically the customers and all those things, that the business is extremely at on a downside, and that's where these credits would also be of great help to your organization. Try to see, can you optimize the credit by identifying the missing credit, if any, because you have time limit, you have outer time limit up to September 2020. Then friends, in cases any one of you are having any particular issue because in your particular industry, because all the participants belong to maybe you are belonging to say real estate industry, some of you belong to construction, some of you belong to infrastructure, school, auto sector, some of you belong to hospitals. So what you can do in cases where you are actually going through obviously all of us are going through a crisis, but at the same time, even because of the crisis, certain practical challenges are getting arisen in your organization, and GST is one of the such challenges. And in case you need some concession from the GST Council because of Corona, then what you should do, you should try to make a list of all those points and you should try to represent your issues before the GST Council. Now, what are the issues or what are the points you can likely take before the GST Council? One, in case you are a real estate company, you can highlight the fact that the rate of GST which is there right now is 5%, correct, on real estate sector. Certainly, it's an extremely high rate. You can try to highlight the fact that this kind of rate should not be there, and practically a lower rate of GST, the way it was there before GST regime, that is under the service tax law and VAT regime, that should be reintroduced practically. And how it can be done? One, either the top line rate 5% can be reduced to say 3 or 2%, the way the rate of GST is applicable for gold, or the developers can be given the input tax credit of at least input services, the way the input tax credit was available under the service tax regime. So this kind of request you can do. Similarly, as all of you are aware, throughout India, the real estate sector gets a land deduction of straight 1/3, that is 33% practically. Now one can say that in the case of city like Mumbai, in the case of city like Pune, the land component can be substantially higher, correct? The rate which we pay for prominent location, wherein the land component is substantially higher, and there the rate deduction can be based on rather ready reckoner rates rather than the standard 1/3 deduction. And similarly, in case of JDA, there are many issues, so you can represent those issues before the GST Council. Similarly, in case you are a school, in such cases, I think import of services is one of the main issue, because on your output side as a school, we are not paying any GST, but at the same time, many schools are right now importing certain software. They are paying, they are procuring certain software so that they can teach the students through the online mechanism. There is a substantial software cost which they are incurring, and in such cases, practically they are required to make payment of GST under reverse charge mechanism. And in such cases, you can highlight the fact that this additional cost of 18% is substantial, and you can request for a either lower rate of GST on such cases or a proper exemption on such import of services. Similarly, many exemption which are there under the GST law for school, those exemptions are typically to do with various costs such as transportation cost and all. As all of you are aware right now, there is no transportation which is taking place. So those exemptions are literally redundant for the school. And that's where the government should try to give relevant exemption to the school, and which will be of certainly great help to the school. Auto sector, as we have discussed about the dealer or distributor discount, one of the major the issue of concern for auto sector is similar, that is the discount which will be given to the dealer or distributor, that is post supply discount. So there should be appropriate clarity which can be issued by the GST Council on this kind of discount. In case of hospitals, as all of you are aware, there are many hospitals which are having presence throughout India, correct? And these hospitals are right now, for example, one particular hospital with whom we are working, they have a main head office in Mumbai, and they have presence in around 8 states throughout India. Now what happens that these hospitals are working as Corona hospital or COVID hospitals, and they are working in a coordinated manner, that is they are interacting with each other. Now what will happen after the Corona crisis goes away, when the GST authorities will visit this hospital, one of the big concern which they are having is whether the GST authorities will say that the head office is providing guidance to all the other hospitals, correct? And because of that, there should be a cross charge with the main hospital, that is Maharashtra hospital, should do on all the 7 to 8 location, and on that they should charge GST. And if GST is said to be applicable, as all of you are aware, that the recipient are the hospital, so they would not be in a position to claim credit, and that will become a substantial cost to them. So in case you are a hospital, you can try to highlight this issue in the public domain. This could be of great relevance to you. In case you are a manufacturer, I think you will have to ensure that the credit note are issued up to September 2020. But what we are trying to share with all of you is that please note that the corona crisis is likely to continue not only up to September but also for more months, might be up to December or even further. Even it might continue up to 2021. And given that, the manufacturer or supplier would be required to continuously give additional discount. Otherwise, they will not be in a position to supply goods in the market, because many of the people have lost job. In many cases, salaries of senior professionals and even working people, it has gone down by 30, 40 or 50% even. And because of that, many people are unable to buy new goods or new electronics and all. And that's where people, the supplier, manufacturer would be required to continuously give discounts. And that's where the time limit of September 2020, which is there in the GST law, in our view, it should be extended. In case this is one of the important concern for you, you can raise this concern before the GST authorities. Additionally, I think this payment, I think all of you are aware that if you would like to continue to claim input tax credit, you would be required to make payment to your vendor within 180 days. And in case you don't make payment within 180 days, you'll be required to reverse the credit along with interest. Now, please note, friend, because of corona crisis, many people are having substantial cash issues. Even the bankers, as all of you are aware, typically are not issuing or giving any new loans, not to everyone, but to many of the people. And that's where the government should look into this particular aspect, and they should try to see that whether this 180 days condition either can be kept in abeyance, or they can specifically say that even if you make payment within, say, 365 days, it should be fine. So at least during corona crisis, if this time limit of payment to the vendor to continue to claim the credit is extended, it would be of great help. So friends, with this, we are through with our session for the day. Now what we will request all of you to raise the questions or queries